So, what makes the Ivy League universities so unique and most sought after, especially for undergraduate aspirants?
So I'll give you an example. When I went to Stanford for my master's in engineering, and I got my first, the exam, and I was surprised to say every professor said it's an open book exam. You can bring whatever material you want. You can bring a cheat sheet, you can write things, right? And I was like, how is the exam going to be? How would people like? How do they evaluate? That's so new to us, right? But then I realized that's the reality in life also, right? No manager is ever going to tell kids who are, when you join the workforce, I want you to solve this project or come up with a document or a project without referring to any external source. Nobody will do that.
Many myths float around. And just do Ivies really just look at grades and test scores, or is there more behind the evaluation process?
Okay, that's a great question. And again, this is a very relevant thought for the Indian audience because we are so used to going with the grades above all, and grades are everything approach when it comes to our college admissions.
And how should students balance between Ivy applications versus other global universities in order to improve their odds?
Okay. So I would say that the IB application process is, think of that as a superset. What all you're doing there will be required for applying to the non-IB or the regular global universities also, right? So when you're doing this thoroughly, you can take parts of that and apply and use that to the other universities, right? So, and I also encourage students, to take this as, don't just aim only for the topmost universities, right? Because it is very competitive.
So, folks, you have tuned into TGV and hearty welcome to the Guiding Voice podcast series, the world's only quadrilingual podcast at this moment of recording. And we are trying to embark into multiple languages as we speak. And here we embark on transformative conversations for a better future. And we want to simplify and amplify your journey to success. I'm your host, Navin Samala, dedicated to making the world a better place by bringing you wisdom through valuable discussions with experts designed to simplify and amplify your success. And thank you so much for tuning in. So, folks, we are joined by Pavithra Srinivasan. She is the co-founder of Galvanized Global Education and has guided thousands of students worldwide towards achieving their Ivy League and top global university dreams. And with her expertise in admission strategy and mentoring, she helps students and families navigate the complex path from aspirations to acceptance. So, Pavitra, hearty welcome to the Guiding Voice podcast series. And how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Naveen. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, pleasure to have you. And thanks to Sendil Kumar Rajendran for connecting us both. And let's get the ball rolling. So, folks, today we are going to have an interesting conversation, which is about breaking myths and building futures and Ivy League admissions demystified. But before we get started, here is an exciting twist. As always, let us tickle our guest's brain first. So, Pavitra, get ready for a rapid fire round of random words. I'm going to mention a few, and I would love to hear the first thing that comes to your mind in response without thinking much. And if you're ready, let's get started.
All right. Fingers
Okay.
crossed. Yes.
Hello, I'm Steve Ahern, one of the judges of the Asia Podcast Awards. I'm interrupting this episode to let you know that you're listening to an award-winning podcast. This podcast won its category in the 2024 Podcast Awards, so you know you're listening to quality. Enjoy your listening experience, and congratulations to the team who created this award-winning podcast for you.
All right, it's going to be very easy. And my first word to you is curiosity,
Innovation.
invention,
Invention. Utility.
future.
I'm reminded of Yoda. Always in motion is
Mm,
the future from Star Wars.
mhm. Right. Universe,
Multiverse.
leadership,
Vision and teamwork.
book,
Knowledge,
Aliens.
the Drake equation,
Career.
pathways,
Role model.
very personal,
Awesome. And here comes the last one. Success.
individually defined.
Individually different. Awesome. So you have all the answers spot on, and that's a great set of responses. And with that, let's get into the mainstream. But remember that there is one more rapid fire round towards the end of the episode. So Pavitra,
Keep my fingers crossed.
let's get started. So thank you once again, and appreciate you being part of our mission in shaping the careers and lives of millions across the globe. And let's get the ball rolling and dive into the mainstream conversation. So, Pavitra, talk to us about who is your guiding voice.
This is a very pertinent question given that's the title of your podcast. And I have to say, rather than point to one particular voice or individual, I would say that our ability to listen, to seek out those voices at the right times is actually a lot, important as well. And, often I found that when I made the right decisions, I sought guiding voices, and and at other times I had not. So thank you for reminding me of the importance of guiding voices.
Most welcome. So, we introduced this question probably about a year ago
Hmm.
because it resonates well with our theme of the podcast as
Yeah.
well. And everybody has a guiding voice, and somebody thinks, okay, their own intuition is their guiding voice. Likewise, we get
Mm.
different responses. And thank you for sharing that. And talk to us about your success mantra, as in, share with me top three things that have contributed to your success so far.
Sure. So, firstly, I would say I like problem solving. I enjoy problem solving, and as long as I pick a field where I can express my strengths well, it helps one to succeed. And I think that is true for everybody. One has to know your strengths. To the extent to which you know your strengths and you pick a field where you can play on your strengths, then that is the foundation laid, right? I also, I've been told that I'm a creative person, and I do enjoy that side of me as well. For example, one of my favorite months during my company was when we built our mobile apps, which did very well, had more than 1 million downloads, and we did very creative. We went out of the box in some of the ways we approached it, and that helped us go viral. So that was very interesting. And finally, I would say perseverance is important. you know Knowing, sometimes you might be too quick to throw in the towel, and at the same time you should know when to take a different decision, when to go down a different path. And again, circling back to the guiding voices, they are very helpful in times of decision making. So yeah, this is what comes to mind.
Excellent. And Pavitra, let's begin with the basics of our topic today.
Sure.
So, what makes the Ivy League universities so unique and most sought after, especially for undergraduate aspirants?
Got it. Now, I would say that the moment you mention undergraduate aspirants, because a lot of people, especially in India and in the context of our country, when we talk about undergrad education, they often, when I talk to parents, they are reminded of their undergrad days.
Yeah.
And most parents would say that I actually enjoyed my college. That's great. What all did you do? Oh, I went to the canteen. I bunked classes. Have watched movies. I, had great friends. And when I asked them about the education and the value for money they received from the tuition aspect, most people
Mhm.
would give a very sheepish smile, right? So, and it's true even today, because even today, if you were to go to most universities in the country, I'm not talking about all of them, but vast majority, you will find that if you were to go and ask students, okay, when do you start studying for your exams? they will put up their hand and say the night before the exam or the day before the exam.
Mhm.
Right. And that's
Yeah,
been
yeah.
true for parents. That's true for today's generation because that's what the system expects of us. Right. Now, on the other hand, they would never dream of doing that for their board exams. Right. So the system changes and we adapt. Indians are good at that. Now, what happens when you join the workforce or you start a company or you join, your career pathway begins? No manager is ever going to say, okay, this is a 6-month project and you can start working on it the day before. No person would ever dream of doing that, would they? Right? So we actually, if you think about it, we prepare our children to go through 4 years of actually unwinding the way in which they rigorously prepared for their education in their high school. And then we we give them very unhealthy habits on building their education. And then we expect them to suddenly change their habit formation when they start their career. I'm not even talking about the knowledge gained. That's another whole different story, right? You go to our in a lot of the universities here in India, you talk to the topper in the class. Okay, I'm not talking the average student. You go to the class topper. They go to an exam that they had aced the previous semester and show them that question paper today in that one semester later. How many of them do you think will be able to do well? Right? So so this is the reality of our system, right? This is not a judgment call that we are making. This is a reality we can all observe. So what happens when you study abroad and particularly at highly ranked universities, global universities across the world, and including and not limited to the Ivy Leagues, is that the system itself changes. No? The entire system is geared towards not just learning, but educationally, academically, but a whole lot more than that. And also, it happens throughout the year, right? So let's talk about the academics first, and then there are a whole lot of other aspects as well. So when it comes to academics, right? Now, the education system is such that you will have to be in tune with the coursework. Otherwise, you cannot do the assignments. If you can't do the assignments, you can't do the midterm. If you can't do the midterm, you can't do the finals. And everything, goes for a toss, as they say, right? So I'll give you an example. When I went to Stanford for my master's in engineering, and I got my first, the exam, and I was surprised to say every professor said it's an open book exam. You can bring whatever material you want. You can bring a cheat sheet, you can write things, right? And I was like, how is the exam going to be? How would people how do they evaluate? That's so new to us, right? But then I realized that's the reality in life also, right? No manager is ever going to tell kids who are, when you join the workforce, I want you to solve this project or come up with a document or a project without referring to any external source. Nobody will do that, right? So it actually prepares you for the real world. And what I found was when I actually went through my exams, and some of them were 24-hour take home exams, by the way, right? What you go through is you realize I could never have answered any of these questions unless I had understood the concept thoroughly, right? No amount of bookish knowledge is going to help you. And that for me is one of the biggest academic takeaways is the sheer learning methodology itself, right? And when parents pay tuition, you will know for sure that you will get the bang for your buck solely in terms of tuition. And that's just the tip of the iceberg because when you go to a top global university, what you get is actually an educational ecosystem. It's an opportunity ecosystem, right? Apart from the academics, you actually get to be taught by professors who are experts in their field. They're passionate about it. Some of them might be Nobel laureates. I still remember when I visited the Berkeley campus, and this was absolutely unforgettable. They had parking signs, the parking lots. They would have boards who can park here. They had slots for NL. And I found that was for Nobel laureates to park their cars. How cool is that? Right? So it's very inspiring. And the kind of infrastructure and investment and that they have on the labs and this is too modern. It's very cutting edge. You get to actually your professors might be the ones creating path breaking changes in their field, right? And so you have the opportunities to do cutting edge research, publish papers, and then there's the industry, academia, the linkage, right? The ecosystem, right? The Bay Area is a great example where the companies that have formed there, the founders have largely come out of Stanford and Berkeley and a few campuses. And I remember also in Stanford, the faculty are not only allowed, but they're encouraged to start startups while they're still teaching, right? And everything is neatly worked out. So the university knows that they're contributing to a larger ecosystem and vice versa. So you get to be in a place where you influence and create what happens in the rest of the world, rather than consume what happens. And I think this journey is what really differentiates the top global university experience. So I hope that did justice to your question.
No, absolutely. That's a wonderful response, actually. I have done my master's through BITS Pilani as part of work integrated learning programs. And there also, they have the concept of open book exams. And as you rightly said, right, unless and until we know the topic so deep, we'll not be able to crack any of those questions. So I think these are going to test our real capabilities and as well as
Well
competencies
said.
as such, right? Yeah. All right. So moving forward, many myths float around. And just do Ivies really just look at grades and test scores, or is there more behind the evaluation process?
Okay, that's a great question. And again, this is a very relevant thought for the Indian audience because we are so used to going with the grades above all, and grades are everything approach when it comes to our college admissions, right? So the typical student and the parent cannot think of an alternative, right? Or how well do we do on your exams, whether it's the school exams or the board exam, the entrance exams, all of these different exams. But the universities abroad form a very, they take a very different approach. And so the top universities, your Ivy Leagues, they are looking for an individual who brings value to their campus, right? Someone who can gel with their community and contribute as much as they also get and receive from the university. And they assess this in a variety of ways, right? So academics is important, but I would say um, universities take a weighted approach. There is academics matters. And yes, if you have exceptional academics, good for you. But that does not necessarily guarantee you an admission at a Harvard, or a Yale or a Stanford necessarily, unless you are also able to convince the university that I have gone above and beyond what has been expected of me as a student, right? So, for example, doing certain community impact activities, right, or projects, right, or right, talking about your journey as an individual, and they give a lot of essays, opportunities to express, how you have evolved in your journey, and your extracurricular activities. Right, they want to see who you are as a person. So yes, this the number one myth is, oh, if I'm a topper, then I can get in, or put otherwise, oh, they look only at academics. That's not true. They look holistically. They want to see that the person they are bringing in is not one dimensional, because they are not bringing in one student. They're bringing in a cohort, and the entire cohort has to represent that university.
Yeah, yeah. Hmm. Got it. All right. So moving ahead, like for high schoolers, how should students showcase not just academics but extracurriculars, leadership, or community impact?
Okay. That's a wonderful follow-up question, because we are how do I showcase the non-academic side of me, right? How can I showcase impact? So the first thing is impact is, so there's two parts, right? You have to um you know uh, students, again, it's very new to us Indians, this whole concept. What do you mean by high school kids creating an impact? Right? High school kids are viewed as recipients, as big vessels into which teachers will dump information and they have to regurgitate. So it sounds like an oxymoron, right? What do you mean these people creating impact? So let me give you some examples, right, which can then help us generalize. when you think of impact, it's very hard, isn't it hard for someone to create impact in an area they're not passionate about, right? So first thing is you have to pick a couple of areas that you're really passionate about. And how do you do that? So impact so research is, I would not call research as a direct impact, but if you, because yes, the research has to be taken to people and scaled in order to create the impact, right? So universities do look for the capability to conduct research in your area of interest. They also look to see how have you impacted the people around. So I'll give you a couple of examples here. So one of our students is learnt a very specific martial arts, an indigenous martial arts called Silamba. Okay, and she is very passionate about this field. She's very good at it also. So generally, like, and in around ninth or 10th grade, you have to start thinking about all this, because in 11th and 12th you can't be focused at starting the impact at that point, right? It's a little too late. So what we advised her was, okay, what else are you passionate about? What part of the community aspect do you want to change? Because you can help with, there is poverty, there is education or literacy, there is environment, there is nature. There are so many areas where one can create impact. So she said, as a girl who is learning this martial arts, I would love to spread that, right, to my, more girls who have not had the opportunity. So what we suggested was to, if he, to pair up with schools which are in serve underprivileged areas, schools, and teach them this martial art, which is also a form of self defense, but it's a form of exercise. It brings focus, and she also and our student got to know what it is to teach, right? So when you and it was a win-win-win. You know, that school was elated, those girls were very happy, our student was happy, the university that looked at her application was happy, right? So these are sort of places where one can create win-win, right? It's a lot more than one individual. Give you another example. So one of our students was very into marine biology and wanted to, and nature, environment. So they're spending 2-3 months a summer actually in the coasts with environmentalists, where you conserve the turtles, you note down, you actually write down, you document, you take pictures, you understand the changes that have happened from last year to this year, mapping the ecosystem. That also has huge community impact, right? It shows what you have done with what you have. And one final example of community impact. This was a student who got accepted to Stanford. And he was living in a big city, but his family and, they were hailed from a village ancestrally. And when he went to the village, he actually saw that that place was very distant and it did not have a blood bank. And he heard the story of, tragic stories there. So he, roped in a lot of people who were, he brought in other students who wanted to contribute, and they came up with a solution for a blood bank. They talked to actual blood banks. They understood what are the ground level challenges, what are the critical path activities. There may be 10 things I need to do, but if I can solve these three bottlenecks, then this village can have a blood bank, right? What are those bottlenecks? And different people, and he said, okay, you guys do this, you do that, you do this. So he actually led a project, right? Someone got sponsorship, someone did the technical bit, and he was able to demonstrate not just community impact but leadership, right? And this was again a very beautiful example. And you can see how when you're able to do these things at that age, you can, it's a true life experience, right? The child will become, has a lot more likelihood of being successful in any changes they want to bring in later on in life as well. So this is something, I hope these examples give you an idea. But again, one should not do cut, copy, paste, right? I really want to make that clear, because it has to come from within. Everybody has the opportunity to make community impact, right? And when you talk about this, then it goes from there, right? So pick something that's close to your heart, and then talk to people who have the experience and are able to connect the dots and guide the students on how best they can navigate this.
Right. Got it. And a while ago, we mentioned that typically toppers may or may not get admission into IVs, right? So, can you share examples of students who were not the typical toppers but still made it into an Ivy League
Okay.
school?
Okay. Great question. So, um, so one thing I do want to say is you have to be very good academically, but you need not be the topper, right? So it is difficult to perform poorly academically and expect, slots in an Ivy League unless you have done something super exceptional on an area which is not related to, which cannot be supported by school academics, right? Because school has a few subjects, but universities, there's no, they have an enormous number of courses and areas one can pick, right? So if you're able to demonstrate that level of skill, let's say you're exceptionally good in design, right? And that's not supported by your school, but my academics are not, I don't have that much to show for, but look at my portfolio. And one look at your work shows that you have the makings of a world class, master designer, right? Someone who sees nuances in everyday things and brings out something unexpected from that, right? And if you've done it consistently over time, it's not a, once in a blue moon, hey, I did this. But if you're showing that consistency, if you're able to apply it to different areas, right, then this story will speak to your success, right? So this is one example. There's another one. One of our students actually was exceptional in a particular sport. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's either archery or rifle shooting, or one of those areas, an individual's sport. And he represented India in international games also, right? So, and you can see that consistency applied over time, right? And he was very clear that I want to go to a university that has this sport. See, that's the other beauty of undergrad abroad, in especially in the US. The universities have teams, all kinds of sports, not just football or basketball, but you have rowing, you have rifle shooting, you have any kind of, like, amazing. In fact, you should look up the number of Olympic medals that Stanford has won. If you take Stanford as a country, and look at the number of medals, it's enormous, right? So you can be an Olympic athlete and doing your courses, and then the university is going to make exceptions for you academically as long as you bring them athletic honors, right? So, if your academics is poor, you have to make sure you stand out exceptionally in one or two areas, at a not just at a city level or a district level or a state level, but at least at a national level, if not internationally, these things, because then they know, oh, okay, this person didn't ace their exams, but guess what, they bring something so unique and value adding that our campus will benefit from it, and my university, my brand will, reap the benefits. So
Yeah, got it. And how important is storytelling in applications, essays, personal statements, and recommendations?
okay. Now that's the crux, right? So you could have done all your achievements, but end of the day, how did you evolve as a person? What did those achievements teach you? More importantly, what roadblocks did you encounter? What failures did you experience before the achievements? The entire world unfortunately runs on survivorship bias, right? We see the successes. We don't see how many times the person fell down and what made them get up and still go again. So the university, the admissions officers want to hear this story. They want to know what drives you, what motivates you. And that's the beauty about applying to these universities, because very few Indian universities ask for this kind of qualitative information from their undergraduate applicants. I'm not saying there are none. There are quite a few, especially in the recent years, universities have opened up that are ready to look at a candidate holistically, right? But abroad, every university requires an essay. Minimum one, but most, if you were our typical applicants, if you're in your grade 12, you're applying to say 10 US universities, you will end up writing at least 45 essays. I'm not joking, right? Now imagine the journey that a person goes through to articulate their experience after this many essays, right? Now, and I'll give you some examples. So, not all essays talk about tell me your academic journey, talk about your research area. That's there, but that's not the crux, right? For graduate applicants, you will see that the crux focus is there, but for undergraduate applicants, because US universities sometimes even give you the liberty of not declaring your major in your first year, right? You can take audit various courses, various departments, and if you meet their criteria, you can declare your major in your second year or sophomore year, as it's called. That means who you are as a person is more important than just the exams you've aced, right? So, what's your journey like? How did you get interested in this field? Or what motivated you? Where did, I'll give, for example, there is this platform called Common App where you can pick one essay which really relates to you and then write a lot about it. But you have to, it'll take a month or two sometimes to flesh out what can I write about, right? So, for example, a question could be, tell me about a time where you have encountered a belief in your community that you did not agree with. How did you respond to that prevailing belief? What were the results? And how did that change you as a person? This is an actual essay question given to a 12th grade student as part of the university application journey. Can you imagine adults answering this essay with ease or take it as a breeze? So the journey, right? When you ask me how do they capture the journey, this is an example of the journey. Give you another essay question that comes up, and this shows the creativity of the student, right? So one university actually asked this question where they want you to write up an essay on the following: imagine modern day technology, and imagine giving that technology to a historical figure, any historical figure. What did you what do you think they will do with it? How do you think they would have changed the course of history if they had access to this technology? There is no right or wrong answer, right?
It's all about how creative you get,
Exactly.
right?
And this is where the individual's personality shines through, right? And you can go as creative as you want. There is no right or wrong answer. But the university will understand what change you wish to effect in the world. How will you go about it? Right? And what is your unique perspective? What's your signature style? And that's what I love about these questions because they give you the opportunity to share your journey, but also create your story, right? And your unique perspective because everybody is different, and that's what shines through. So I hope that
Yeah,
answered your question.
that's
It's a
quite
great
interesting.
question.
Yeah, absolutely. Great, great. And let's talk about parents. They also often struggle, right? So, what is the best way for parents to support their children in this journey without adding pressure?
That's that's actually one of the challenges that it is. I can definitely share with you a few things, but we always tell our parents that th- this is not your opportunity to undo the mistakes you made. Okay, do not try and live your dream through the eyes and the actions and the decisions of your child. Of course, I don't tell them this as bluntly as I just did, but it is an important message that needs to be given because often you'll find parents, especially Indian parents, having these long-standing dreams in their hearts that their parents should not, permit them, and therefore now they want to live their dream through their child. The first thing is to accept that my child is a different individual, a unique individual, definitely an extension of me, but definitely not me, right? And what can they do best? How can I support that, right? How do I help them flower, right? Because I'm here as their steward, right? They're not a carbon copy of me, right? How awful the world would be if every generation were exactly the same as the previous one, right? There would be no growth, no change. So, so I think that starts with a mindset, right? That this is not my dream, but it is my dream to provide the best opportunity for my child to realize his or her dream. That's it. Now, once you have that clarity, then it becomes a question of helping children to go through the journey in a non-stressful way. It is much easier said than done, because when you're juggling multiple things, it gets stressful, because after all, time is limited, right? Now, if a child is preparing intensely for the JEE and also wants to apply to universities abroad, yes, it's possible. A lot of our students have done it, but you have to be smart about the way you manage time, right? And one has to prioritize. Okay, this time of the year I'm going to do this. This time of the day I'm going to do this. So if a parent can help inculcate this time management in their children, and that itself is a great blessing, because and it's a life skill, right? You're teaching your child to be self sufficient, and that's the ultimate responsibility of a parent, right? To help your kids stand on their own feet and contribute in a larger way to the community at large, right? So that's pretty important. So apart from time management, I would say having open conversations or showing interest in what your child is doing. So many times parents have come and told me, I never thought that incident which happened 15 years ago in that place, actually my child remembered it so much that they started their essay with it. Parents are surprised to find out what observations the children made about social expectations, about family commitments, about the way finances are handled, and because all of these come out in the essays. And when parents read their essays, many times they reflect on how they have been through supporting their children through this journey. So I would say giving your kids the right way to manage time, making sure they're nutritionally, healthy, well, don't drive them to study so hard that they don't get enough sleep, right? Or their eating habits go for a toss, or they don't even get exercise. I think if the basics can be met and you provide these opportunities, and finally, one thing I would like to say is, um, both the children and the child and the parent, and if you're working with a counselor like us, all three should be on the same team, right? It's a triangle, right? It's a partnership, and we all have to be aligned about the goals. I have come across parents who insist that this goes back to my earlier point. They would, in a common meeting, in a video call like this or a podcast, imagine this imagine I have, you're looking at a parent and a child and talking, and the parent says, okay, so let's apply for computer science engineering at the bachelor's, and the child looks aghast at the parent and says, which world are you living in? How come you didn't understand what I've been telling you all along? I want to do journalism, or I want to do something else. And the parent will be like, look, I'm the one who's paying the fee. I'm putting you through this education. And the child would be, but I'm the one who's actually going there and going to study. So I have seen these very emotional moments play out live. And often a counselor, like us, like we become the mediator or the wire media between parent and child. And that's a very sad place to be, because it's not the best use of our skills and our expertise, right? We want to help you, go through the journey. It's actually a very different journey from Indian university application process. So we want you to get the best outcome for the effort and the time and the money that you're putting in. But instead, when we find that we are resolving these deep standing issues, right? Often, and you have to remember, children here are in their teenagers, so they are going through their own challenges, and parents often at the same time are going through their midlife crisis, right? How timely is that? So if make sure that you have these communication issues resolved outside this journey, right? If need be, take the help of a family counselor or a therapist, or have whatever works for you. Some things, maybe there's a common vacation or a spiritual whatever, but keep that outside the application journey. So how the child and the parent communicate effectively, if that is sorted out, then the rest of the journey will be a lot smoother. So that's a much longer answer, but it was a very hard question, right? Because it's one of the most sentiment and emotional ridden, and it's a very stressful time, right? And parents often tie their identity to what their child is doing. again, it goes back to the Indian setup. You meet family, you meet rishtedar in a wedding or at a, festival. Oh, my child is doing this, my daughter is here, my son is this. What about your kid? Right? And then parents to, reflect that that degree and that university as the summation of their value that their existence added is very, very, I don't have words to say. So, but I have seen so much. Thanks for giving me an opportunity to, you know, to vent about this often untold aspect, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, that is the harsh reality, unfortunately. And so Pavitra also talked to us about the biggest mistakes these undergrad applicants make when applying to IVs.
Hmm. So, okay, the biggest mistakes. So, one is again to think that academics alone is enough, which we discussed is not the case. But often they find this out much later. So when you come to us in grade 11 or grade 12, and I look at your profile and I see only academics, nothing else, then it's a little too late for me to say, okay, now start playing the guitar and, do a country music album. Not happening, right? So I think the biggest mistake is not starting your journey early enough, not creating that awareness early enough because time is limited. Now, for you to show a certain passion towards, an art form or towards a sport or towards a community impact, everybody needs time. I can't come to, in grade 12, the summer vacation between 11th and 12th standard and say, okay, now I'll do all this. But the shocker is that's when they find out that they need to do all this. So the biggest mistake is not starting early enough, right? Not having the awareness of what this journey entails. So if you start early, you have, like they say, right, well planned, you're half the battle won, right? They also say that once you start the battle, all plans go to toss, but that's different, right? So I think planning early, right, is very, very important. And once you, because that's when we can create a path, right? So when we understand what the student brings in, we say, oh, you're very interested in biology, or you're also, curious about data science. Then let's come up with a project where you can tie the two together. And you need that time to talk to your local hospital, to use the parents network, find out, who is ready to give you an internship, right? All of this takes time. So start early, right? Don't no, do not leave it to the last minute. It's a journey. Often, grade 8 is not a bad place to start, but at least I think by grade 9, one has to think about this because it's a wholesome, holistic development also, right? The second thing is, second mistake I see people make is to treat their application to the university as a list of achievements rather than as crafting a narrative. Right? The university doesn't want to see check boxes. Oh, I've played volleyball 3 years. I've played this. I've done this. This is my activity. And you know how sometimes people ratchet up so many activities. I see 38 different things you've done, but I don't see a connecting thread. I don't see how I weave and understand and interpret your story through this. So coming up with a narrative which ties together all that you have done and forms a sort of an underpinning through which serves as a lens through which I can view your journey and understand the value that you will bring, right? Someone who's had that journey, how they're going to add value to my campus. That's again very important, right? Otherwise it's just a laundry list, right? And it doesn't really tell a story because and the fact that they're giving you all these opportunities to share your story or write your essays, your portfolio, is because they want to see through all this what is the common thread that you are and how have you expressed your uniqueness in different ways. So this is another mistake I see. And the third, there are many more, and we can do an entire podcast only on that, but maybe I will stop with just the third one. uh, is to is to make assumptions about various things. Oh, oh, this university is not famous, therefore it must not be good, right? For a particular field of study, that university might be among the top 10 worldwide. And the companies that hire in that department will know it's very good and they will come there, right? But assuming that, oh, it's not a household name, therefore it's not good. Another mistake is about the finances, right? It is an expensive proposition to do your undergrad abroad, but thinking that therefore I should not even try, right? That could be another mistake. Who knows? You might get a scholarship from a university where you really spoke your story well, right? So there are various pitfalls along this very intense and arduous journey, but ultimately it is a journey that the child who comes out of the journey even before you fly out abroad will be different from the child who entered the journey, because you can see the various experiences this journey forces them to go through.
Yeah, got it. And how should students balance between IV applications versus other global universities in order to improve their odds?
Okay. So I would say that the IV application process is, think of that as a superset. What all you're doing there will be required for applying to the non-IV or the regular global universities also, right? So when you're doing this thoroughly, you can take parts of that and apply and use that to the other universities, right? So, and I also encourage students, to take this as, don't just aim only for the topmost universities, right? Because it is very competitive, right? A Stanford or a Harvard, they take in 3 to 5% of their applications, which means out of every 100 applications, 95, 96, sometimes 97 of them end up in the dustbin, in the reject pile. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not worthy of them or you're not the right material. It's just that they have a limited number of seats, right? To, of course, for various reasons, including to maintain their exclusivity, but that's a different conversation, right? But they have a limited number of seats. Now, I can point out to you universities which are really good, okay, almost equal in caliber, the kind of experience you will get, but they take in a larger number of students. As long as you take the initiative to get the value out of your classes and your professors and your labs and your faculty, you will get the value, right? So, and they have a much higher acceptance rate. So that is something, to
Mhm.
be mindful of. Yeah.
Yeah, got it. And let's talk a bit about the financial side. Again, high level details
Sure.
should be
Yeah.
okay. So share with us about scholarships, financial aid, and any hidden costs, etc.
Got it. So, there's a huge range when it comes to costs. Right? There are universities in the US where you can get by for $25,000 a year. And there are universities where it will be $75,000, right? Big range, right? It all depends on the, on various factors. Right? And now you have to think about, what is it that I want? Why am I going there? Am I going for a tag name? Am I going for the experience? Am I going for the career opportunity after that? And link it to that. Now, there are various scholarships offered, right? But it's not that common for undergrad, but there are scholarships. That's the beauty of the whole thing. Because unless you apply and go through the journey, you will never know what you could get. You know, for example, there is a Tata endowment and a foundation scholarship that gives that awards funding to Indian students who attend Cornell University. It's a very detailed, minute, niche thing, right? I know it because I've been in the field for years now. So if getting into Cornell is hard, but if you get into Cornell, I think around 7 or 8 students, or there's a certain number that's awarded the scholarship, right? That's amazing. But for that, you have to know, how do I get that? Who is offering? How do I try? Right? Similarly, there are certain fields of study where if you pursue your higher studies in that field and you come back to India, the government of India will also be ready to sponsor you. Agricultural engineering is one of those fields, for example, because they know that this is something I can really benefit from, right? So different fields, different universities, everything changes. So they have there is flexibility, but you have to because we have been dealing with hundreds and thousands of students, we understand the background, the nuances, the details. Germany as a country is very interesting. For example, because if you manage to get accepted to a public university in Germany, It's not easy to do. And they have their own version of, you can call it the German Ivies, right? There are, especially in the technical field. If you get accepted to a public university, they will bear the cost of your entire tuition, right? You only have to give the cost of living, right? So these are things that yes, you have to learn German, right, for undergrad. So yes, there are pros and cons, but it's an amazing experience. Imagine doing automobile engineering in Germany, right? So,
Wow.
dream,
That.
right? So every country, every
Yeah, yeah,
field of
yeah.
study, every university, they have their own uniqueness. So scholarships are there. And last but not the least, let me give you one example of one of our students who applied. Actually, this is a really good example. Got accepted to Berkeley, okay, and but no scholarship. Got accepted to Drexel in Philadelphia. It's a good university, but it's not your top university for sure, with full scholarship. And ultimately chose an in between university where they got partial scholarship and they got very good private opportunities, right? So that's it's up to you. It's your decision. Because why would a university give you a scholarship? Because they really want you on their campus, right? They feel like, I want the student, walking through my or I want them to be on my campus, so I will give them this. But if they have so many such applicants, they don't have to give you that scholarship unless there is something super super unique, right? Or if you're really good at a particular sport, like I gave you the example, you can get an athletic scholarship, but for that you have to be country representative material, right? So there are these, one has to choose. It's a decision that parents and kids make. We even had a situation where a child got accepted to Purdue University for an undergrad in engineering, very good school, a top, one of the top 20 schools in the US, and ultimately chose to attend BITS Pilani, which is a great school in India, and decided that, what, I will now, I know what caliber, what I'm capable of getting, and I will go for my master's and my PhD. But now I'm so proud to say that I went through this journey, I got these admits. And now I'm making a decision to stay closer to my family for, whatever, right? So it's a personal choice, but only when you go through the journey, see you will know what you could have gotten. Otherwise, you will be thinking, regretting, maybe if I had applied, what if I had gotten that? You're always going to have that uncertainty or that question mark. It's much better to spend, 3-4 lakhs to apply and see what you could have gotten. It doesn't mean that I have to commit to that 50 lakhs a year or whatever it is just because I applied, right? Ultimately, that's our own individual decision, often a family
Yeah.
decision.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Good one. And this has been insightful and really great insights coming up so far. And it's time for us to add some more spice and excitement to the episode, which means we have to kick off the second rapid fire round. So if you're ready, let's get started.
All right, ready or not, here they come. Yes.
So, so Pavitra, if you could have one gigantic billboard anywhere with anything on it, what would it say?
Aligned, are you aligned? Are you aligned right
Stay
now would
aligned.
be the
Okay.
question.
Okay.
Yes.
Are you aligned?
What you're aligning to is different.
Very powerful. And can you describe yourself in yeah, yeah, yeah. And can you describe yourself in just one word?
I'm sorry, I don't have any clue on how to go about that. But maybe how about I pop the question to you? You've spoken to me for half an hour. What do you think? What word comes to your mind?
um, I would say clarity of thought is something coming through in this particular conversation. So you have that
Thank you
clear
so much.
mind.
I really appreciate that. That's great.
Uh, so Pavitra, next one is like dream Ivy League campus you would love to study at. Maybe if you could go today and do your bachelor's there.
Okay, great question. So, just to zero down on the definition of an Ivy League, right? The traditional definition of an Ivy University is 8 universities in the US, which are your Harvard, Princeton, Yale, Columbia, Dartmouth, UPenn, Cornell, and Brown. Now, these are not necessarily, the US has a lot more top universities also. right? Like Stanford or MIT, Carnegie Mellon, and so on. So I broaden, for me, the definition of Ivy is, includes all the top universities that are, phenomenal, that are world class, that are creating the kind of, impact, right? And I would also extend it to universities in the UK, like your Oxbridge, system. Every country has its Ivy Leagues, right? Singapore has its NTU, NUS, and so on. So, so with the broader definition of Ivy, right, I would still want to go back to Stanford. Having for my undergrad, because see, doing your undergrad is very different from doing your masters or your PhD, right, or for that matter, your MBA. And as an undergrad, you have a lot more freedom in terms of interests, right? What all diverse areas, which all classes you can take, and you can in fact, you're encouraged to take classes in various areas beyond your specialization, beyond your major. And you could take classes, you could be studying engineering and you could take classes in philosophy, you could take classes in rhetoric. It's very interesting that way, right? So, and Stanford has an amazingly, I would say, an astonishingly beautiful campus. California has great weather, throughout the year, right? You don't have to. I mean, I'm not saying, a lot of these campuses are beautiful. Okay, Harvard has a beautiful campus. Uh, you know, uh, uh, MIT, many of them have fantastic campuses, right? Cornell has a lovely campus. They're very pretty in fall, especially. You would find the colors, all the oranges and the shades. You would never think there's so many shades of orange and red and yellow in the leaves, right? And the hills in the distance, of Cornell, especially, it's in upstate New York, you will see they're like actually purple. It's very pretty, right? But come winter, I don't like the cold too much. But if that floats your boat, then go for it, right? You can literally hop and visit the Niagara Falls whenever you want. So each campus has its beauty. I still would love, do my undergrad in Stanford, if I had choice, because of the weather, the beautiful campus, the fact that it's in the heart of Silicon Valley and has helped, flourish that area. And I'm a techie at heart, so I'm a product person. I love, building things, but that's just me. All of these places have beautiful campuses. The Princeton, New Jersey has such a pretty campus, right? And you see the buildings and you see the ivy growing and you can feel the ancientness, right? If you go to, Oxford and Cambridge, you will literally be walking along the same paths that Isaac Newton would have walked once, right? There's, how do you, equate that to anything? So, there's just too much beauty and miraculous moments here. So, but yes, in a way, it's very telling that I wanted to do my undergrad abroad very much. My parents wouldn't hear of it. They were like, no, 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 we are not sending our girl child at this age. They gave the so in a way, it gives me a lot of happiness when I'm able to support and guide and help so many parents send their children abroad for undergrad as well. So I feel like I've come a full
That's
circle
good
with
one.
that.
Hmm. Okay. And let's move to the next one. One myth about Ivy League admissions you want to burst right away.
Wow, lot of myths, and we went through some excellent myths here. I think the biggest myth is that I have to be a topper to get into an Ivy League, right? Yeah, I think that's the biggest myth. And the other one I would want to add is thinking that only Ivy Leagues are, worth it. There are many good universities, and there you will get an exceptional experience in many of them.
And the funniest or quirkiest essay idea you have ever come across.
Funniest or quirkiest? Okay. Stanford once asked this question: "What's your favorite word and why?" Okay. Now it's very quirky because you know there's no right or wrong answer at all, and I can't just say, "Oh, my favorite word is pizza" because I love eating pizza. Right? That's just a waste of an opportunity they've given you. So one has to think about, it's funny and quirky, but it's also a lot of work, right? You have to think about what word I really relate to. For example, when you named your podcast, right, the guiding voice, I'm sure you would have put a lot of thought into it. What is that? What are those 3 words or 2 words that can bring out what I want to do. And therefore, doing this journey is actually, yeah, it sounds trivial, but it's actually very deep. I would pick that essay.
We have finalized the name out of 70 plus thoughts that I've put through.
Wonderful. What a journey that must have been.
All right. Yeah, that itself took about 2 weeks for us. Me and my erstwhile partner
Mhm.
Sudhakar,
Mhm.
we have created a Google sheet and we started
I can imagine.
putting in ideas whenever possible
Yep.
and all.
What
Okay,
brainstorming and
so
what analysis, and one should not be stuck in
yeah,
analysis paralysis also. So
right, yeah. And one book every undergrad aspirant must read, in your opinion.
again, Naveen, I have to say, today's undergrads and today's high school students, if they read a lot of books, I'm happy with that. The amount of
Mm,
media, of various kinds of social media, especially the short-lived, the non-long form ones, that the TikTok
yeah,
mindset, the attention span has gone down so much that if you can read books,
right.
okay, I'm very happy, right?
Mm-hmm,
And among books,
right.
try and read classics also, right? It's
Mm-hmm,
I'm not saying don't read the Harry Potter, but can you read something that has stood the test of time, in whichever language
right.
it might be, and see what are the
Mm-hmm,
insights that that person has tried to communicate. And also, I would encourage children to and students to read non-fiction as well. Fiction is great and
mm-hmm,
it has its place, but please don't get put off by non-fiction. You might find something very useful for your life there also.
mm-hmm. And if not Ivy League, which other global university would you pick as number one?
Hey, there is no one school. Okay. And the reason I'm telling you, I'm
Mm,
sorry it's a rapid fire, but I can again tell you that,
mhm,
look, for medicine, the field of medicine, I would pick
mhm,
Johns Hopkins
mm,
or I would pick the University of
mhm,
California in San Francisco. For a completely different field, I would have to pick for something like public policy or political science, I would pick Syracuse University in New York, right? So
right.
each one of them,
Mm,
and there are so many such examples. They have literally
right.
trailblazed, in their respective fields. That it's we can keep talking all about it, and and it is still not over.
Right. Yeah, yeah. Got it. And quick advice in one line for parents of Ivy League dreamers.
It's a journey.
It's a journey. Superb. And here comes the last one for the second rapid fire round. What is one electronic gadget or a fantasy gadget that you like to see or invent yourself?
Oh wow. Okay. I think I would say, okay, in today's world, because we spend so much time online, I think being in
Mm-hmm.
touch with any of our, close, it need not be if very close relative, it could be a friend or a family or one of your high school, classmates. I would say an app which would, where I can say, hey, I'm kind of free right now and I wouldn't mind a conversation. And then it pops up all of people in my 1,500 or 3,000, contact list. Maybe seven of them are free right now and they're also in the mood to talk. And, I can just talk to them, right? Because often we think about, oh, I have to reconnect with that person, right? It's been so many
Right.
years since I met them. It's been so many, I don't know what's happening in their life. And we have that hesitation to just pick up the phone and call, right? But if
Correct.
I know that they're
Mm,
also free and in the mood to talk, boy, that would totally, change
yeah.
the way people connect with each other, again. Yeah. Thanks for the opportunity.
Amazing. Yeah. Good one. And after that amazing second rapid fire, let's flip back to the mainstream. So, with the H1B visa changes, do you think students and families will rethink investing in Ivy League undergrad degrees?
Okay. So, first of all, we need to keep in mind that these changes have been announced very recently and they are in place for a year. Now, by let's say a
Yeah.
kid who is currently in grade 11 and wants to apply to
Right.
universities abroad, by the time he or she finishes
Mhm.
their 4-year undergraduate degree, it's going to be 6 years from today, right? You do
Mhm.
not know who is going to be the US president at that time. You do not know what
Mm.
changes in policy or what, maybe they would completely go do a U turn also, right? Anything can happen. right? So the journey of application should not be, I would say, that should not be sacrificed because of a decision that might happen several years down the line, right? Why not
Yeah.
apply and then see what happens? I'll give you the example of the UK.
Mm.
Until a couple of years ago, they had a stay back period of just 4 months after graduating from the UK. And for various reasons, they increased it to 2 years. Guess what? Now I can earn there, pay back my loan or whatever. And coming back to H1 and the US in particular, if you've graduated from a STEM program in the US, which stands for science, technology,
Hmm.
engineering, mathematics, you get 3 years of
Yeah.
what is called OPT or optional practical training, which is not your H1B, but you can
Hmm.
still work in the US for 3 full years,
Right.
right? And if you have lived your undergrad experience frugally, and if you are you're not partying all your work, you're not buying a BMW, you're being sensible, you will actually be able to pay back your loan, right? Provided you find a job in a field which is well remunerative, right? So there
Hmm.
are,
Yeah.
and after that, now you have a degree which is recognized throughout the world. You can go work in Singapore, you can work in Canada, you can go to Australia, you can work in India, wherever you go. But people do their undergrad degree once. Right? This is what I tell my
Hmm.
parents, right? If, look, it's sad, but the state of the reality is you people can even get married twice. But your undergrad degree you do only once. You know, so don't compromise on that.
Good one. I loved it and I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. It was really pleasure connecting with you and getting all those amazing insights, and it is going to immensely benefit the community. So thank you so much once again. And how is your experience being hosted on the Guiding Voice
It was
podcast?
very, very good because I felt this was like a very natural flowing conversation. It was free flowing,
Right.
and the questions were, they really made me think, and I had to,
Hmm.
make sure I'm adding value, right? Whatever I'm saying is of utility, and I was very tickled by the rapid fire, both the before and after. I think it puts us in a very natural frame of mind, right? And not a very oh, I'm an expert in this field, I can talk only no, it brings out the human side of us. So I think that was very
Yeah.
thoughtful as well, and your team has been so professional, in sharing the information, in communicating the timings as well, how the software for the podcast and your questions throughout. I think it was very good. So thoroughly enjoyed the experience,
Thank
and,
you.
and thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And that's the intent of our rapid fire questions, actually. Like, we want to know the other side of the speaker, and we get some lot of amazing insights out of this, like you did. So, thank you once again. And thank you, Sendil, for
Yes,
connecting us with
thank you, Sandhya.
amazing Pavitra Srinivasan. So, all right. So, friends, that was our episode with Pavitra Srinivasan, and you'll find her LinkedIn profile in the show notes or episode description. Please go ahead and feel free to connect with her. And before we jump into the fun trivia section, we have a quick request. In case if you have enjoyed the conversation and found it useful, request you to share with at least 3 of your friends or colleagues or family members who would also like TGV, the guiding voice. So spread the knowledge and help others grow just like you. And it's time for us to cruise into the trivia segment, having an amazing conversation about how to crack Ivy League admissions for undergrad. I thought I would present you a few facts related to Ivy Leagues themselves. So Ivy League is not about academics originally. And the term Ivy League was first used in 1937 to describe a group of colleges for their athletic conference and not academics. So the prestige association with elite education came later. And Harvard has the largest academic library in the world with over 20 million volumes. Harvard University Library is the biggest academic library globally, bigger than many national libraries. Third fact is that only one Ivy League school is not in the northeast of the United States. All Ivy League schools are in the northeastern of the United States, except for Cornell University, which is in upstate New York. Still northeast, but much farther and more rural compared to the others. So these are the quick facts about Ivy League. Likewise, if you are aware of any interesting facts related to Ivy League, feel free to comment if you're watching this episode on YouTube, or if you have found it on Spotify or any other social media platforms as well, you can comment there. So, folks, that's it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in and also for being part of our awesome TGV family. So, until next time, take care, Stay inspired and remember the best is yet to come. Goodbye for now. See you in the next episode with another amazing guest. Take care. Love you all. Bye bye.